Hello and good morning, all. Thanks for joining India's Mac Admin March Meetup. I'm very happy to see familiar faces joining back to back, and I'm sure somewhere or the other we are all growing together. So let's start. We have a good agenda today. Obviously, a small introduction about me. My name is Salim Ukani. I'm also known as Sam Star in the community. I have 15 plus years of experience both in Mac and Windows platform. I like to work with team, collaborate with team, and that's where I started this community. This community helps me and as well as us grow together. We are going to talk today about Apple updates, what's new in Apple updates. We will talk about Champ update. There are a good amount of changes there. And the main topic today is Microsoft Enterprise SSO. What is Enterprise SSO? What are the requirements? How to deploy it? And finally, if we deploy and if things are not working, how to troubleshoot it? Because that's very important, how to troubleshoot and fix the issue. And the bonus content for today is the SSO extension troubleshooting model. This is a flow chart diagram, okay, which will give you basically a step-to-step guide. How can you troubleshoot an issue? Okay, so let's start. Apple update. I think there is nothing much change since our last meetup. The iOS and iPad OS are on the same version. Mac OS is still 13.2.1. If you have not joined my 5 months meetup, you can go and check the recordings. In recording, I have told that when you upgrade a Mac OS from a previous version to 13.2.1, and if you have file vault enabled in your organization, and if the user is a standard user do not have admin rights, this update will trigger recovery screen. And I was working with Apple on this. Good news is Apple believes that they have fixed the issue in macOS 13.3, which is still in beta. Okay. This version of macOS 13.3 will come out in last week of March or first week of April. If you need more updates about the latest features about Apple updates, you can always go to the URL which is mentioned on this slide and get the latest update. This page will give you updates for all macOS version, all iOS and iPadOS versions. Is there any other updates about Apple which I am not covering today? And if you are aware of, this is the right time to call it out. Okay. Champ update. So since our last meetup, Champ has released two binaries, 10.44.1 and 10.44.45.0. Okay. And if you see correctly, the URL to review Champ Pro documentation is also changed because Champ has now released Learning Hub. You can always go to Learning Hub for all your information. So the Learning Hub is learn.champ.com. But if you want to read the documentation about latest version, this is the full URL on this slide. So what all changed in 10.44, in 10.45? Let's have a review. In 10.44.1, which was released in March 3rd, okay, we had many enhancements. I am capturing only few. The first is end user notification for app installers. If you have enabled app installer in your organization, those of you, if you don't know, app installer is a feature in Champ Pro where you can enable this feature for application installation and application updates. There is no need to package anything. You can simply go look for a package which you want to deploy, enable it, and Champ Pro will take care of it. In the backend, Champ team has created a robust workflow to package the latest version of the application on your behalf and deploy it. Also, it takes care of the patch update. So if you deploy, example, version 1 of any application, and if version 2 is available, app installer will take care of the update. It is auto update mechanism. So what's new? The new is the end user notification, which I will show you in coming slide. So what is changed? What we need to configure for the new function or feature to work correctly. OS update reporting. Those of you who has attended my November 2022 meetup, in that meetup, I explain you about remote commands, how we can deploy mass commands on end user devices for an operating system update. It can be minor update, it can be major upgrade. Okay. Now, when we deploy an OS update from a remote command, previously we didn't had any granular reporting on it. The command is send. What happened? Is the OS updated? Is it in progress? Is it downloading the update? We don't know. So with 10.44.1, there is a new feature added in reporting aspect of mass command OS update. So when you do a mass deployment now, you can go to history. Under history, you will have operating system update, and there you can see the status, whether the update is in downloading state or is in progress or it is completed. Configuration profile payload update. A very small tweak around configuration profile, but it is very effective. I'll show you what all has been changed in these slides which is coming. And lastly, if though for those of you who have configured external certificate authority in Champ Pro, so this configuration now support 4096 bit of key. It's more of a security. It's a feature enhancement, good to have, not mandatory. In 10.45, which was released on 21st of March, Jamp Pro has provided us Google Beyond Corp Enterprise integration with Mac OS. This was already there for iOS devices, but this is now extended to Mac OS. So if you have Google Beyond Corp Enterprise in your organization, you can now integrate it for Mac OS workflows as well. Failover URL for single sign-on. So for the people who have already enabled single sign-on experience in Jamp Pro, where your identity automatically takes the credential and you logged in with your credential. So if you have enabled single sign-on integration, you always know when single sign-on doesn't work, you need to go to the failover URL. And failover URL is always static. It's your instant complete URL / failover question mark. But to increase the security, now you can also add a string of alphanumeric characters behind your URL so that it is unique to your environment. More of a security. I'll show you how you can do that. App installer deployment improvements. So during the deployment stage, previously there was an issue, and I'm going to cover this in a slide. So Jamp is going to mitigate those false negative issues, and I'm going to talk about it. Computer inventory reporting. So with 1045, if you go to computer inventory reporting, under operating system, now we have new variables about rapid security updates. As we know with macOS Ventura, we now have a rapid security updates which will be deployed by Apple, which will no longer need a device to restart. So how can we make sure whether a particular rapid security update is installed on a Mac? With 10.45, JAMF has given you that ability to see it whether the rapid security update is installed or not. This is more of a compliance check to see which machine is compliant with the latest security updates. I'll show you how you can see it. Important note, with 10.45 and with what we are talking today, similar to that, if you have enabled single sign-on in your Jamp Pro for self-service, and if your identity provider is Azure AD, then we have a known PI which will restrict your user to log in. And also install some application, I would recommend you to go ahead and check your account and go to known issue section. It will give you detailed information. As I was talking, end user notification for app installer. So imagine you have configured app installer in your organization and the application name is Zoom. Okay. So you will open Zoom. When you open Zoom, on the left hand side of my screen, you will see three options: configuration settings, deployment status, and user notification. So when you go to user notification, now you have update notification for open apps. Okay. And you can click this option and you can remind user with a notification of once every 4 hours, once every one day. These are the frequency mentioned. So imagine there is an update available for Zoom and Zoom app is open. If you want, you can send notification informing user that there is an update available for this app and you need to quit this for the update to happen. Okay. Not only this, to enable the settings for the notification frequency, you need to go to the configuration setting of the same app. Okay. On the right hand side, I have given you example of Firefox. Okay. In this setting, if you go below target group, you see configuration profile for additional settings. You need to check this box. This will install the supporting configuration profile for the notification to work correctly. So these are the two settings which you need to enable for end user notification to work correctly. OS update reporting, as I told you that now in Mac OS with 10.45, uh, XAMPP has given us two new variable. On left hand side, if you see, there are two variable which is blank, that is operating system supplementary build number, operating system rapid security response. Okay. So when there is no rapid security response sent to a Mac device, it would be blank. But as soon as a rapid security response is installed, this value will be populated with the new build RSR build number version, and in operating system rapid security response, it will populate a symbol A or a symbol B. This is how you will know that if there is one or multiple RSR is installed. And the unique identifier for this will be the supplemental build version. It's good to have that tomorrow, if there is any rapid security response is released by Apple, and if cybersecurity says, can you give me the compliance of rapid security response update, you can create a advanced search, okay, and create a report that, okay, if the value is populated by this build number, by this response ID, and generate a report, you can show them how many machines are compliant, how many machines are non-compliant. It's a good to have feature, which is now with Mac OS. App installer deployment improvements. This is very important for those of you who has enabled app installers. We all know that when we configure app installer for the first time, or if there is an update for the first time, what app installer does it tries to deploy the application on all devices which is in scope. And within the first 24 hours, we will see many failed deployments because not all Mac devices are online. We are a global organization. If you are releasing an update in APAC hours, obviously AMER is sleeping, the Macs are not online. EMEA is not either online at the moment. So what happens is, in the first 24 hours, there are many false negative in the report, in app installer deployment status report, where we see many failures. And to overcome these false negative status, what XAMPP has improved with this version is they have enabled a new criteria. So as soon as you deploy a new application through App Installer, they will first send a command called install application list, and they will wait for a response from the Mac device. If they get the response from Mac device, that means the Mac is active, and only then, they will start the deployment. And if they don't receive the response, the Mac will be termed as offline, and you will not see a failure against that Mac device. So this is very good improvements for those of you who has enabled app installers. Failover URL update, as I told you. So if you have never enabled single sign-on authentication in your Jamp Pro, so with 10.45, by default, you will see after the failover URL a string of random characters. As you see in the screenshot, on the right hand side, it says question mark failover equal to some characters, right? And if you have enabled single sign-on in version 10.44.0 or previously, then you can always come to this page and click on regenerate, which will again create a unique URL for you. Now, as we have created a unique URL with some random characters, there are high chances that you will forget what was the failover URL. And if you forget what is the failover URL, you can always call the API /v1/sso failover. Okay. And this will tell you what is your current failover URL. So that's an API call to make. It's a very good feature, handy, to make sure, your failover URL is unique to you. More of an improved security. So this were about the updates in 10.44, in 10.45. Here I am calling out that if you are not part of my Telegram group, this is the right time to scan the QR code and join the group. This group will help you not only to understand when is the next event, it will also help you what is the next topic we are going to discuss, when is the next topic we are going to discuss. Apart from that, now in this group, if you have any issues, challenges, open questions, you can feel free to come to this group and ask questions. And we are here, we all are here to help. It's like, we help each other. Let's come on the main topic now. Microsoft Enterprise SSO for Apple devices. So Microsoft Enterprise SSO is basically as an extension to give you seamless sign-on experience on Microsoft product or any product which use MCell authentication, any product which use OAuth2, OpenID, and SAML authentication. There is an URL in this page where you can go and read about this plugin. Call out is this plugin is still in preview. It is not generally available, but Microsoft still supports. If you have issues, you can always go to Microsoft and you can always call out that there is an issue and they are here to help you. Frankly speaking, I have enabled it since last year. It works seamlessly without any issues. It is in your life. You don't see those prompts, Outlook prompting out, Teams prompting up. This is for Microsoft folks. If they have Microsoft Office 365 application in their organization, those prompts, when a user change a password, you see Outlook, Teams, OneDrive, everything popping together. This is a configuration which will disable those prompts and also seamlessly sign them on. It gives a very good end user experience, and we will see how. So first thing first, we need to understand Microsoft Enterprise SSO is an extension, and there are two types of extension. Okay. So first extension is redirect extension. Second extension is credential extension. A Microsoft Enterprise SSO works with redirection. In the layman language, it redirects your authentication through an URL to your broker. There is an agent which we need to install on Mac device. Okay. It redirects your authentication to that broker, and broker on the application behalf, on the authentication behalf, goes to Azure AD and get you an access token. So Microsoft Enterprise SSO is a redirect extension type. Okay. There is a second type, which is extension type credentials. And in layman language, this is basically Kerberos. This is authenticated against a host, probably a domain controller, to get the Kerberos ticket. This helps you in password change and password sync. So let's see what are we going to cover today. Microsoft Enterprise SSO, we are going to cover what are the features of this extension. What are the requirement to deploy this? And if we are meeting the requirement, what will happen if we are not meeting the requirement? Options to configure. Configuration, what we need to configure so that it works correctly. And in configuration, I'm also going to talk about troubleshooting because they both are hand in hand. And lastly, deployment. How can we deploy? So Microsoft Enterprise SSO features. So basically, Enterprise SSO provides a seamless sign-on experience for all application which is registered in Azure AD, or all application which supports or uses OAuth2, OpenID Connect, or SAML. Microsoft Enterprise SSO can only be enabled if you have an MDM solution. MDM solution like JAMF, like Intune. If you have any MDM solution, only and only then you can enable this extension on a endpoint, on a Mac device. Okay. If there are extensions which doesn't support MCell, like a browser session, we can also configure SSO for a browser session, so that if someone goes to a browser to portal.office.com, the seamless sign-on will work over there as well. And I'll show you how. Requirements. So from a Mac point of view, Mac OS 10.15, that is Catalina and higher, is still supported from Microsoft Enterprise SSO. Although although Microsoft do not support Catalina anymore with Office product, but this extension, Microsoft Enterprise SSO extension, still support 10.15 and higher Mac OS. The must requirement is for Mac device, we need to install Intune company portal application, because company portal application has that broker which can capture your primary response token, primary refresh token, and which can provide you an access token. All this seamless sign-on happens on token-based authentication, and hence company portal application is a must before you configure this. Just to call out, you just have to install company portal application. No need to launch the application, no need to sign on. The application must be present on Mac devices. That's it. Similarly, in iOS and iPad OS, we need version 13 and higher, which is supported by this extension. And we need Microsoft Authenticator app on that Mac device, on that iOS or iPad devices. Okay. As I already told you that this can be only enabled by MDM. That means this devices has to be managed or enrolled to an MDM solution like Jamf. Okay. And all the configuration which happens, which enables Enterprise SSO, it's written in a configuration profile. So this configuration profile has to be created and has to be deployed on an endpoint, so that it enables the Enterprise SSO plugin. On this screen, I am guiding you, I am showing you how can you create Microsoft Enterprise SSO configuration. It's a step-to-step guide, because during the configuration, if you do a silly mistake, things doesn't work, and hence we end up getting issues. It is very simple. If you are familiar with Jamf Pro, you need to go to configuration profile. You need to create a new profile. When you create a new profile, in the entire inventory list, the payload list, you will see a single sign-on extension. When you click on single sign-on extension, on the right hand side, you have an add button. Click on add, and then you will see payload type. You need to select payload type as SSO, because this is a single sign-on extension. Okay. After that, it will ask you what is the extension identifier. So extension identifier is and must be com.microsoft.companyportal.mac.sso extension, because company portal application has that broker which will help you in single sign-on experience. And the team identifier for the app is whatever is mentioned here. Okay. Then single sign-on tab. So in single sign-on tab, you will have two options. One is credential, one is redirect. And I have clearly explained you in previous slides that Microsoft Enterprise SSO is a redirect type. So we need to select redirect, and then we need to enter the URL. On the right hand side, you have list of URL which you need to enter. These are all the URLs which has to go in the configuration. There is nothing more, nothing less. Everything is here. You need to enter one by one in the configuration. I'm going to show you how the profile will look when it is installed on a Mac device. Okay. Apart from this, there is a custom configuration which we need to deploy for a non-MCell application. Imagine there is an application which doesn't support Microsoft MCell authentication, but we need single sign-on experience because that application uses Azure Active Directory for authentication. That means it basically goes to one of these URL for authentication. So in our custom configuration, we can always provide the preference domain of that application. If you guys don't know preference domain is basically com dot vendor ID dot the application name, like com dot apple dot safari for Safari browser, right? Can we guys mute ourselves? So on this page, I am showing you the custom configuration. If you see this configuration, the first line, the first key says app prefix allow list. These are the preference domain where SSO will seamless work irrespective whether it support MCell or not. Okay. If you see com.microsoft dot, that means any application which has a preference domain of com.microsoft dot will work. That means entire Microsoft application. Com.apple is basically entire Apple application. Com.jamf is basically Jamf, and com.jamf software dot is self-service. Jamf self-service. Okay. The second key, if you see, the second key is for browser SSO interaction enablement. If you want that this SSO work seamlessly on a browser session, okay, then this key and integer you need to place. One is to enable it. Okay. And lastly, there are few applications, although Microsoft Enterprise SSO is enabled, but there are still applications which will prompt user. Although the authentication will go smoothly, but the prompt will come. And if you want to explicitly disable those prompts, you need to add this key and integer in your configuration. This is bare minimum, which I have configured, which works for me. But if you want to go in details, on the first page, there was an URL. It has a detailed key and string mentioned for each and every application and strings. You can refer that. But this is bare minimum, which you can configure and test it out if it's working correctly for you. This custom configuration will be available in my GitHub page. When I share the recording, I'll give you that link so that you can go and download the custom configuration for your environment. Now, as we have configured the configuration profile, we have deployed the configuration profile. There are many a times that we see that the enterprise SSO doesn't work correctly. And enterprise SSO doesn't work correctly. It's just because either it is not meeting the requirement or the configuration profile is not up to date or not correct. So here I am giving you a glimpse of how the profile will look on an end device. This is what you need to check to make sure enterprise SSO configuration works correctly. So if you have Mac OS Ventura, and if you go to system setting and profile panes, and when you see your profiles, the very first point you will see this Mac is supervised by so and so MDM. In a global environment, we always have a production environment and a test environment. So it is very important to make sure the device belongs to the right MDM. Maybe you are changing configuration in a test and the device is pointing towards a production, and hence the configuration are not up to date and things are not working. Okay. Second is you need to find out your extensible single sign-on profile. which you have deployed, whether it is installed or not. If it is installed, good. If it is not installed, that means the deployment is not done. Enterprise SSO will not work. So, and if it is installed, double click and see what all is mentioned there. On this screen, on right hand side, I have showed you the profile, how it will look, and there are numbers to it. Point number one clearly indicates that this profile is signed by Microsoft.com. We can all sign our profile if we have a signature. And as we are using Jamp Pro, if you don't sign it, Jamp Pro will sign it on your behalf. Second is very important is the installed or update date and timestamp. Okay. Imagine you have deployed enterprise SSO on all Mac devices, and then you found out it is not working correctly. You did a tweak in the configuration and you redeploy. After redeployment, few machines Mac user says it's still not working. Come to this profile and check the timestamp. Is the timestamp after the changes made by you in Jamp Pro or previous to the changes? If the timestamp says this is prior to all the changes you have made, that means the new updated profile did not landed on the Mac, and you need to do a recon and make sure this profile is up to date for it to work. So it's very important to keep an eye on date and timestamp. This is not specifically for extension SSO. This is very important for all the profiles which you have. Third point is very important, where you need to make sure these settings belongs to single sign-on extension. Okay, if you have not correctly configured this with single sign-on extension, it is not going to work. So this profile should clearly tell you this is a single sign-on extension. In point number 4, it will show you the extension identifier, and it has to be must. It should be matching. There is no other option. It has to be com.microsoft.companyportalmac.sso extension, case sensitive, and the team identifier, which I showed you in the previous screen. Point number 5, you need to see whether it is a redirect type of payload, because enterprise SSO works redirect. It doesn't work with credentials. And it happens when you are in rush, you don't select the right payload type and things doesn't work. And lastly, all the URL which is mentioned in the documentation, in the slides, make sure all those are here. If this is accurate, probably your enterprise SSO should work. Now imagine this is accurate and still Microsoft Enterprise SSO is not working. What can we do? So when you deploy Microsoft Enterprise SSO, and after deployment, for the first time, when an endpoint authenticates itself with Microsoft authentication, the agent, which is company portal app, the broker, captures a primary refresh token in keychain access. Okay. How you can find it? Go to keychain access. Okay. Go to login items. Okay. Go to all items in the point number 1, and in search type primary refresh, all lowercase, and doesn't matter basically. You need to find whether primary refresh token is present in your keychain access. If primary refresh token is not present, that means the broker has not collected the primary refresh token PRT, and hence the seamless sign-on is not working. And if this is the case, you need to just re-authenticate on that endpoint, and you will get the token in keychain access. Apart from searching it, you also need to understand that this primary refresh token is basically your application password. This has your credential to get your access token ID from Azure AD. So user is not authenticating himself, but primary refresh token is authenticating you on user's behalf, and hence they don't see those additional prompts. It is seamless experience for them. So you need to make sure this is present in keychain access. This is always up to date. On point number 6, you will always see that when it was last modified. So PRT basically is valid for 15 days, and between 15 days, 15 days, whenever Microsoft authentication happens, primary refresh token automatically refresh itself. So you don't have to worry to refresh the primary refresh token. It can take care of itself. More information on this is, Point number one shows you it is in all items. Point number shows you how can you search it. Three refers that this is basically an application password for Azure AD. Okay. Point number four will display you, if you see the complete URL which is hidden, the complete URL is basically user object ID with your tenant ID. So if you have primary reference token and still PRT, or if still single sign-on is not working, make sure the tenant ID matches to your tenant ID which you have in your organization. Okay. Point number five displays the full name of the credentials. Okay. It is alphanumeric. Okay. And point number six basically shows you the credential was last updated when. Seven indicates that this belongs to local item. Imagine in a Mac where iCloud is permissible, local item will replace itself to iCloud keychain, and then you will find these details in iCloud. So this is about primary refresh. How can you troubleshoot and make sure the seamless sign-on works? It is very important to check configuration first, and everything looks fine there. Come to keychain access and look for primary refresh token. This is very important. Without this keychain access, seamless sign-on will not work. Now that I showed you how seamless access work, let me tell you the process flow. Okay, in this screenshot, you see an application, Office 365 application. You see a Mac with a company portal application with a PRT icon, and you see an Azure AD. To simulate the process flow, one of the application is trying to access. That means it's trying to authenticate. That application will not go to Azure AD. It will go to the company portal app because it is the broker. It has the primary refresh token. And on behalf of user, company portal app with primary refresh token will go to Azure AD. And Azure AD will then return an access token. Access token for an application is valid for 1 hour. But you don't have to worry. If an application is running for complete 1 hour, before the session expire, the broker will automatically refresh the access token. So you don't have to worry at all. Okay. So Azure AD will give the access token to the broker, and broker will again send the access token to the application requesting for it. And how does this look in motion? Let me quickly show you. So let me, show you in live. So in this window, if I hide my floating windows, refresh this session, see the application is going to company portal app. Company portal app is going to Azure AD. Azure AD is giving the access token, and then access token is gone to the application. So this is the process workflow, how it works. An end user is not prompted for it. It is basically simple for end user. They just try to access and it works. And there is a small demo for a Safari browser. When an end user try to access portal.office.com in Safari browser in private window, because in private window doesn't have cookies, it will prompt end user. But when you configure this scenario with this process workflow, it will look like this. So let me refresh portal.office.com. It is going to login.microsoftonline.com, and it is straight away coming inside. So if you see, this is a private session in Safari browser. So nowhere it will prompt end user to enter a credential. Less authentication prompt, seamless experience, a wow factor. So this is very good for end user experience. So this is how the flow works, and this is how is the end user experience. And when you configure, you can see this magic on your own. Coming back to slide. So this is the user experience which I told you. This is how the experience work. And lastly, to talk about the bonus content, this is the entire Mac SSO extension troubleshooting model. Imagine, there is a problem in one Mac device and enterprise SSO is not working, and you don't remember whatever I said in this call. You need to go to video and check. This process workflow starts from top, and it guides you with step-to-step troubleshooting step. What you need to check. Check one, check 2, check 3. You can follow this extension troubleshooting model, and you will come to a point where you will find out the root cause. And if you are not able to find out the root cause, it tells you how you can additionally export a logs, or go to Azure AD tenant and troubleshoot the sign-in logs in Azure AD. And you can also go to Microsoft for support. If you see the workflow, if you go from top left, maybe I will come out of this for a minute and zoom in for you. Model, and zoom in. If you see, let me hide the floating window. It starts from here. If an extension is not working on a Mac OS, first thing first is we need to check if the operating system of that Mac is 10.15 or higher. If it is not 10.15 or higher, then SSO extension cannot function on this version because it's not supported. And if it is 10.15 or higher, yes, then MDM enrollment. Is this Mac enrolled to MDM? No. Then first enroll the MDM so that you get the configuration profile and the extension works. You can either enroll to Intune MDM, you can either enroll to Champ MDM. Okay. So this is the workflow. If it is already enrolled, yes, then validate the SSO configuration. The configuration payload which I showed you in previous screens. You can open the payloads in system setting and see first whether the profile appears. If yes, go ahead and check the flow, whether the flow is working. If no, install the profile. Imagine your profile is installed, everything is correct. Still, the flow is not working, the seamless sign-on is not working. Then you need to make sure the application on which it is not working, that application has MCell version 1.1. This is something you will come to know from the vendor. Go to application vendor and ask, is MCell version 1.1 or not? And if they say no, it is not going to work. If it is a browser session and it is not working, then you need to remember that this interaction or seamless sign-on on Mac works on Apple networking framework, and not all browser is compatible for it. So Google Chrome and Firefox is a big no. They are not in this extension SSO. So Microsoft has developed this solution for Safari browser. They are working towards bringing this experience in Edge Chromium, okay? But Google Chrome and Firefox is out of scope. So if you enable this in your organization and someone says, "Arey, it's not working," check if they are trying to do it on a Google Chrome browser or a Firefox or any other browser. It will not work. It is not supported. This will only work in Safari browser, and the support for Edge Chromium is still developed. The few workflow will work, few will not. So currently it is ready for Safari browser, and Microsoft itself recommends Safari browser. Okay. And then it will ask you to check PRT, which I showed you, and then go to Azure AD, check the sign-in logs and stuff. But this is basically a good model for troubleshooting Microsoft Enterprise SSO. When I developed this last year, it was very hard for me to understand why things are not working, where to go, whom to go, because this is in preview. You will not find much documentation around. And that's where, this model helped me out to check bit by bit, step by step. This is something which will help you troubleshoot and fix issue when it comes to Microsoft Enterprise SSO. Coming back to slides, I think this session was helpful for you. I would like to thank you again for joining the session. We also have a community on Champ Nation. If you guys are not part of Champ Nation community, I would recommend you to join to that community so that you can see the events. I will always host my monthly events on Champ Nation community. Scan this QR code to join community today. Thank you all for joining.